got 25 minutes. We gotta go. Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of Say That.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. We're super excited to have you with us. If this is your first time with us, go ahead and put a 1 in the comments. We'll actually shout you out, all of our newest people who are with us today. And, you know, if you love what you hear and see, please don't forget to put a like, hit the subscribe button, also hit the notification bells. That way you don't miss any of the episodes that are coming next.
Absolutely. And guys, something that we've been running with this season that we're really excited about is taking questions that we've gotten from you guys, the audience, but not just having the conversation be just Janelle and I, but actually incorporating other resources, other entrepreneurs, other thought leaders into the conversation. So today's another exciting one. Today's question, make sure that you guys are commenting along with everything that you guys are seeing and just sharing your thoughts as we go along today. So let's jump into today's question, guys. Today's question is, and boom.
Could every human be rich and happy? I don't know. Could every human be rich and happy? I think this to me feels like a two-part question. Is it possible for us as humans to allow for every human to be rich and happy? That's one question. In a capitalist society, I'm not so sure if it's possible. To be quite honest, I'm not sure. There, in a capitalist way of living, there's always somebody who wins and somebody who loses. That's kind of like the ethos of capitalism. So I don't know. However, I feel like the other side to this coin is it possible to be rich and happy? Which I think is like another question, or another way to look at this. And I think, Jim Rohn says that, money isn't everything, but it's right up there with oxygen.
Oxygen.
So yeah, I mean, it's like, you think being rich is hard, try being broke, right? Like, so I don't say that being rich will make you happy. So I'm not saying that, but I do think it is possible to be rich and be happy at the same time. So I think it's possible. Will we as a capitalist society get there? I have my doubts about that. But that's where I stand. What about you, Winston?
I'm going to say no. Well, all right. I guess I vacillate back and forth like you, because one, I wonder what the definition of happy is to everybody listening on. I think in terms of a society, we've obviously have more advances, have more access to things now than we used to. And yet it seems like more of us are unhappy now than when things were harder in some sense. So to your point, I wonder, like, even when it comes to like income stuff, it's like things become more expensive. So even if you go out and you make more, you're kind of fighting against just that natural, order of things, inflation and all. So the thing that comes to mind is that episode of Stark. If you guys don't know, Janelle put me onto something that happened in the episode, actually, I guess the entire Star Trek, where I didn't realize that ink or money wasn't being used as transactions anymore. And essentially everyone got an opportunity to kind of work towards a common goal. And for doing that, you essentially, I wish you were rich because you can buy and have anything you want. But I wonder how it looks if in Star Trek you're having to work on a ship, not get any money, but you can have whatever the ship gives you access to based on your rank. So I wonder what that would look like if we were all given access to the same things. How would we differentiate who gets what and so on? So I want to say no. It seems depressing to say, but I think I'm going to say no. I don't think we can all be rich and happy. But thankfully, it is not just us. So let's jump to today's video and see what they have to say on the topic.
So in the world right now, 8 billion humans. There's a lot of climate problems. There's a lot of political problems and economic problems. There's just a lot of problems. Many people are like, well, that's because there's too many people. We're destroying the planet. There's just too many people. It's not exactly true. Humans are very good niche constructors. We're incredible at manipulating the world around us for our own good. Can this human creative ability to look at the world around us, to see the way it is and imagine new ways and try to make them happen, can that get us to a better, more equitable future, not just for humans, but for the planet and everything living on it? So the real challenge is then, okay, how do we live? How do we use energy? How do we create and distribute food? How do we create and distribute health and wealth? How do we create and distribute social good? The complex reality for humans today is that we have an opportunity to work with the world. And for the most part, we seem to be working against the world. People who are interested in the world, right, how animals and plants live, have long realized that there's some kind of relationship between the animal and the environment. Darwin in particular said, look, what's really going on is that the environment is shaping organisms and causing them to change. But what we have known for some time and really began to be formalized in the sort of 70s and 80s is this idea of niche construction. The mutual interaction between organisms and their world is bidirectional. It goes both ways. While there are pressures from the world for food, for mates, for safety, pushing on organisms, they also push back. So niche construction is an incredibly important part of evolutionary dynamics that allows us to understand the nuanced and complicated relationships between organisms and environments in a new way, in a more complicated way, but in a more biologically and evolutionary accurate way. We can think about niche construction in many, many organisms that do it in different ways. The example that Darwin mentioned, and many have talked about, is the earthworm. So if you have a potting box and there are no earthworms in it, and then you take some earthworms and you put them in that soil, what happens is those earthworms start burrowing through the soil and extracts out of it and put stuff in, basically poop the soil out. They redo the ecosystem, making it better for future generations of worms, easier to live there, but they also change it for plants and for other animals living in and around the soil. So that's an example of niche construction where the actions by organisms change the ecology, making future generations have a maybe easier way of dealing with it. But there's even a better, more, I think, closer to human example of this, and that is the beaver. They leave their home, they find a new place, they pair up with another beaver, and then they chop down a bunch of trees and gather a bunch of wood, reorganize that wood, and they create both a little house and a dam. So they change the chemical structure of the water, the temperature and flow of the water, they create an environment for themselves, all such that those little beavers that they're going to have eventually have a better time of it. That's niche construction, right? Beavers are responding to the challenges of the world, of food, of mates, of safety, by redoing the world around them. But humans, for better and for worse, we reshape the world in a pace and pattern that nothing else does. So when we talk about niche construction in humans, we're not just talking about making buildings or dams or using fire to heat things. We're also talking about ideas, faiths, beliefs about death and afterlife, about morals and ethics, about economics and justice. All of those things shape how we act. So what we have to recognize then is the human capacity to create, to imagine, to live in incredibly complex societies, to build amazing technologies is a double-edged sword. Right? On one hand, it slices through all our challenges and makes us capable of doing a lot of stuff. On the other hand, it slices through bodies and lives and hopes and dreams. And so the same capacity that makes humans, in my opinion, amazing, makes us awful, We have the capacity to be the most amazing, compassionate, incredible organisms on this planet. At the same time, we have the capacity to be the worst, cruelest, most violent organisms. And it's that dynamic process that makes us human. What we can do is think technologically, biologically, ecologically, and ask questions about sustainability. And maybe to do this, we might want to listen to peoples around the planet who are not the major contributors to the problems. It's just that we've been trying one system, a particular mode of economics and technology, and yeah, it's sort of gotten us into a bad place. So maybe, just maybe, we need to think culturally a little bit more expansively to do a better job of biologically and ecologically engaging with the world. Now, many people will just say, well, it's just nature, right? The fact that some people are rich and some people are poor, it's just nature. The fact that in some cases men are violent to women, it's just nature. There's never just nature. It's always history and politics and culture and experience and biology and bodies and brains and hormones and diets, all mixed together. So anyone that says things are the way they are because of human nature doesn't know what human nature is.
That was not what I thought it was going to be at all.
It's like the second week where we've had that happen now.
Where we're like, huh.
Okay, so guys, let us know what your thoughts are after seeing the video. Oh, sorry. My bad.
I was going to say the same thing.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, cool. All right, go ahead, Jay. I'll let you go.
Yeah, to be honest, there were moments where I think I zoned out. Like he would say stuff and then I would like start thinking about something else. So there was even that happening for me. So to answer, I don't know if he answered the question, like, could everybody be rich and happy? I don't even know if he really answered it. There was a lot of conversation about what we as humans do, creating like this niche, construction around like
ecosystem.
Sorry, not niche. Yeah, or a little ecosystem in a very small, small space. But I do agree with his endpoint that like I don't think he's right. At the end of the day, I think we try to boil it down to like one thing, but it's not. It is politics, and it is what we eat, and it is culture, and it is language. Like it's all the things, which I thought was a good point to note as well. Because we're complicated creatures. So why would we expect the answers to some of the most complex questions to be super neat and packaged, right? Like, anyway, that was kind of like my take on it. But I was like, I don't think he answered the question.
Yeah, I think towards the end he started to get into it when he alluded to like the politics and those things and asking the question, or kind of maybe posing the question. It doesn't seem like it's a lack of resources. I feel like we have enough resources here, but there's you I think started to talk about it, the capitalist nature of a lot of societies, and in that you're gonna have people who are striving to do better than other people. They're having a desire to earn more income so that they can have more that's provided for them, and in doing so, it means, or it seems like it means, somebody else is going to be at the bottom of the totem pole. If we kind of keep pushing things that way, if that keeps being the motivator. But again, and for many of you, again, and I may not have done a great job explaining the whole Star Trek thing in the beginning, but when you think about what it means for those people who work towards a common goal of exploration of, something new, and I know I'm maybe dumbing down the premise of the show, but for many of those people on the ship, again, I think they all have relatively the same quarters. They all have access to the same types of food, but the whole goal, or I guess part of that, is you have to do what asks of you on the ship in order to take part in, having access to all that stuff. And I wonder how many people would not buy into that because they'd rather, work a job or do something so they can have a nicer home or nicer quarters than somebody else.
And it just seems like that way of thinking it's just different. It's not in money. No. It's not in money. Like if you want nicer cars, you want nicer things, then you just have to work harder at the academy so that way you can get a higher position, right? Like
higher rank.
Those
Yeah.
come with like our higher rank comes with experience and also like being there for your other shipmates, right? Like it's not like you don't gain ranks by being selfish. Like that's, it just seems
exactly.
like
Yeah, you got to do something.
Capitalism is not a part of that. Is no longer a part of the human way of looking at things in the Star Trek society. Instead, you compare things on a ship. There are other things like, people just farm because they farm. They like to farm now. You know what I mean? It's not because like there's enough food on the planet that everyone's getting
There's
fed.
no financial. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's not like I'm hungry, right? Like I don't know, like you have what you need. There's no need to have excess anymore is kind of the thing. It's like, no, I have what I need. I don't need a 10,000, I don't know, that seems like 100,000 square foot mansion. I don't know if that's like a real thing, but right, like there's no need, there's no desire for that even because it just seems like too much for what? Like it's not like you need it. I don't know. That's my point. I don't think capitalism exists in that futuristic society. I do. Yeah, I think to that point, like we have the resources to do it. And it would take a culture shift. I don't, yeah. So like you said, it's everything.
It's exactly where I was going. To answer the question, given the video now, I think every human could be rich and happy, but it would require what Janelle just said. It would require a huge worldwide culture shift. The goal of us as society, as a race, a human race, would have to stop being about which nation could be better, stronger, whatever, richer than the other, and how can I use the resources that we have in this location to further the science and development, the health. Like if we all worked together as a common, like a species, it would be lights out as to how far. I mean, the advances would be. Yeah. I mean, it would just be. I know that competition obviously creates more success. You have advances in that, but there's ways to be competitive where it's not about like tearing down one company because I got to sell more cars or sell more medicine. But you know what I mean? Like even something as something like the vaccine. You had competing companies creating this thing. And so they had to find ways to make it so that their product was more marketable by telling you things that were detractors of the other, instead of just thinking the world is looking at a global pandemic, thousands are dying, hundreds by the day. Let's just save humanity. It's, well, yeah, we're going to get to that, but who can make the most sales as we reach that goal? And I think, not that I'm not opposed to capitalism, but clearly it has aspects of it that that don't necessarily look to benefit humanity as a whole. It's actually like a very single-minded kind of ideology. So,
well, I'm interested. So I see there are some comments. Let's see.
Yeah, throw those up.
Thank you guys for joining us. Jeannie says, I know he discussed human nature towards the end, and I'm not sure I fully grasped his point. Yeah, I kind of felt that way too. I was like, I'm not sure where he's going. He definitely didn't answer our question. And then Brittany says, what about some of the concepts learned from Letting Go, which is a book many of us have read. And I think that's supposed to say Bob Proctor's book. Yeah, right. Like, which I think is probably just an abundance mindset. And letting go is definitely an anti-capitalist mindset. You got like,
yeah, for real, it really is. Yeah,
an abundance mindset, like
which is what it would take.
Yeah, it's what it would take. It would literally take to let go of some of the things that we as a society hold dear.
The thing, right? I think it's funny because I know that there are a few different movies that I've come across where they've kind of played with this idea of just a very advanced utopian society. And I know it's fictional. It's obviously a movie and all, but there are certain things I'm sure we could take from like movies and things that are written up like that. Because a lot of, like, I'll give you an example. I know that there are shows where they've actually written up full on documentation of how the government works and like hierarchies, and like they really do their research. It's not just them throwing a character out and saying this character plays this role. They've actually created structures and figure out how like different ranks, like we talked about Star Trek, how these different things play out. I know one show that I saw. Oh God, what is it about the woman getting pregnant? But something tale. They use these women as and impregnate them because the world is punishing them. Right? Oh my God, Handmaid's Tale.
And the
Handmaid's
Tale.
Tale.
Yeah.
There we go. And to watch that show and how, to me, well thought out they did that. You could easily see something like that, like taking over and actually happening. And I know it was actually fairly old at this point. So who's to say that they can't find it in one of these scripts, right?
Oh, fair enough. I never fully watched an episode of that, but we always said that, like, art imitates life, right? And so I'm sure there are some big thinkers out there, like, you know, there's a ton of think tanks like all over the world where people just come together and think of different things. I mean, America is the great experiment, like legit. Like it's like we out here, we don't want to be a part of the UK anymore. So, or it was England back then. We don't want to be a part of England. So like we think we can create a new society and like it would be better.
Oh, and do it better ourselves, right? Yeah.
Yeah. This country is literally an experiment of trying out a new way of being as a society. And with all of its flaws and all of its imperfections, right? Like, but the truth is it was a group of people who were trying to create a new society. Yeah.
Revolutionary. Yeah. So but this was definitely a good one.
We love to hear your thoughts. We're gonna, in the description, you can find the video itself, and if you want to rewatch it, I may rewatch just because I still feel a little bit lost at the end.
Yeah, that last part, right? I think a couple of us are gonna end up having to rewatch that. But guys, definitely make sure that you guys tune in to what we have coming up next week, and make sure if you've not gone and check it out yet, go check out the Monday Rundown. We've been having a lot of fun with those topics and those shows. So definitely go make sure you watch an episode of that. But until then, as always, remember, you deserve the good life. Say that.
Say that.
All right, guys. So we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy yourself.